this is a moment where we are seeing our presidential administration tear apart the transatlantic partnership.
So in a time of headlines heralding the end of the transatlantic era, let it be known and clear to all that this is neither our goal nor our wish.
Clashing viewpoints on foreign policy from AOC and Secretary of State Marco Rubio as the Munich Security Conference continues. In his speech today, Rubio says the U.S. will not abandon ties with Europe. This as AOC slams the Trump administration as looking to withdraw the U.S. from the entire world. For more, let's bring in former National Security Council Senior Director under George W. Bush, Michael Allen. Michael, great to have you.
Thank you.
Back on the program. We've got two competing messages happening abroad. AOC is sort of undermining the current administration's foreign policy, while the Secretary of State is saying, trust us. Who is going to win out? Who are they going to listen to?
I think Secretary Rubio was very skillful in his address today. I think he made clear that the United States has to look after its sovereignty, has to look at for itself, but he also appealed to the Europeans on the basis of a common culture and civilization. He said, we've bled together and we're going to be blunt with you. You need to get stronger, more innovative, more standing on your own because we have things to do together. So when AOC says that the Trump administration has abandoned Europe, our longtime partnership, I don't think she has a leg to stand on when Rubio gets a standing ovation.
And I think unity with our allies is important right now as we try to deal with Iran, right? So the president just sent this second aircraft carrier to the Middle East. He says, in case we don't make a deal, in case we need it. Is this going to move the needle on Iran? Is Iran taking us seriously?
So I think it helps a little bit, and President Trump is smart to have military force held out here to strengthen his hand diplomatically. But fundamentally, I don't think it's going to make a difference in the final equation because the Iranians don't want to compromise on what we're asking them to compromise on. They're not going to forswear enrichment. They're not going to reduce their ballistic missile program, and they're not going to stop funding and equipping terrorist forces around the region. So I think this is just a bridge too far for these two parties. Iran, I think it's not in the character of their revolutionary regime to compromise as much as we want them to. So I think ultimately there's going to be an American use of force here, probably supplemented by the Israelis.
And the president has brought up transition before. I mean, this is obviously something that a lot of American Iranians want to see. This is something, the president has promised the Iranian people that he wants to help them. But you and I have talked about this. A transition is very tough just by air power.
Right. It's very hard to do. And in fact, you can see the president's preference in Venezuela was just to take out the top of the regime, but leave everyone else there, probably for the reason of having stability across that country. The same might apply here, although the Iranian people also might come back on the streets if it's a very substantial strike by the United States and Israel. It's our understanding there are renewed signs of dissent within Iran. So I think they're bubbling, and maybe this will be the match that strikes, that catches them to get out and get back in the streets.
I want to get your read on the visit from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this week. It was sort of skipped over, but he came to the White House, or at least he met with the president, about these Iranian talks, and I think left disappointed. The president on Truth Social tells us what he told him. I insisted that negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated. Last time Iran decided that they were better off not making a deal, and they were hit with midnight hammer. That did not work well for them. But is there a world, Michael, in which we could see Israel take kinetic action first?
Well, I think so, because remember at the end of last year when Netanyahu came down to Mar-a-Lago, I think he was telling the president there, I'm going to need to strike Israel. I'm going to need to strike Iran in calendar year 2026 because their ballistic missiles are being rebuilt at a greater pace than they had ever imagined. And Israel feels like that's an existential threat. And I feel like Trump had green-lighted him. Then the protests broke out. Then the United States got interested. So I really do very much think that Israel prefers to go the use of force route. And I think that's why Netanyahu, in part, was here last week to say to the president, you can't trust the Iranians on anything. I don't know that he totally got what he wanted out of the president, because the president's very clear he prefers a diplomatic solution. But I think nonetheless, Netanyahu is trying to seed some doubt in the president's mind. And maybe that's why the president...
Do you think he came to not ask permission, but sort of say, we might have to take action, military action?
I think that was part of it. I think I think he's saying whatever you think you might get, ultimately, let's just say on ballistic missiles, we're doubting that the regime is going to be truthful about it. There's no way to verify it. So eventually, we're going to have to go. And I think the president's like, well, hold on, let me just try the diplomatic path and go from there.
He's skipping out on the Board of Peace meeting that's coming up here.
Yeah,
Some people say it's strategic that he came this early, even though it was supposed to be an urgent meeting about Iran, but that way he doesn't have to come back again.
Yeah, the other thing he came to express misgivings about was that now that we're in phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan, first phase, of course, was the hostages. Now we've got to get to this stage where we put an interim technocratic government in Gaza, but really it's disarmament. He's coming to say that there's no way Hamas is going to disarm. They're not going to tell us where their tunnels are. So fundamentally, this is a big problem for Israel. And I think the president is not wanting to hear it just now. I think he's saying, hey, we're on a path here. I'm going to keep prosecuting this as best I can. And so I don't know that Netanyahu got what he wanted when he came.
Michael Allen, love talking with you. Learn so much every time.
Thanks
Great
so
to
much.
have you on.
Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.